Thank you, Sheriff. Y'all may be seated. Mr. Smythe, please call your students.
Call Greg Petty.
Sir, if you could please come to the front of the courtroom. Before you have a seat, please face me and raise your right hand. You swear the testimony you're about to give will be the truth.
I did.
Please have a seat. You just want any questions from Mr. Smythe? Perhaps either Mr. Gill or Mr. Brissett.
Yes, sir.
You may proceed with that.
Please state your full name for the record, spell your first and last name, sir.
Greg Petty, P-E-T-T-Y. First name is Greg, G-R-E-G.
Are you currently employed, sir?
The city of Dow, Worthington Gardens,
And what is your position out there?
Chief of Public Safety,
How long have you had that job?
since yesterday.
And did you used to be deputy chief out in Worthington?
Assistant Chief since October.
Okay. Can you explain what the duties are of the assistant chief, ladies and gentlemen of the jury?
Run day-to-day operations of the department. We're a police, fire, EMS.
Can you pull that microphone?
Absolutely. Is it better?
Yes.
We're a DPS department. We do police, fire, and EMS response. Oversee operations and activities.
And how long have you been with Dow Worthington in some capacity in law enforcement?
Since 1995.
And did you come to know a man named Roy Oliver during your work out of Dow Worthington Gardens?
I did.
How did you come to know him?
He started off as a volunteer firefighter and a dispatcher fire department.
And then you say he started off that way. How did that progress?
He was a volunteer firefighter for a while, then he became a paid dispatcher for our department, and later on became a volunteer police officer for our department.
Right. And if you recognize him here in the courtroom, please, could you point him out and describe the article of clothing?
The gentleman standing in the grayish suit top and blue tie.
The record could reflect the witness has correctly identified the defendant, Judge.
The record shall so reflect.
And what was the relationship that you had with Mr. Oliver? Were you his supervisor, his colleague, or what?
I don't believe I directly supervised him directly. We were co-workers. He dispatched for me for many years, and we were friends.
And did you actually become Facebook friends with him?
Yes, sure did.
And so from time to time, did you see messages and posts that he would put on Facebook?
I did.
Did you become aware that the defendant had deployed to Iraq at some point in time while you two were working together down Worthington?
Yes, sir, that's correct.
And without getting into specifics, do you recall generally when he came back from Iraq?
He came back twice.
Okay. And the second time that he came back, did you notice anything about his behavior that was different than before he had deployed?
He seemed a little bit different to me, a little more distant.
Okay. Can you elaborate on that to the ladies and gentlemen of the jury?
Before he left, we were good friends. When he came back, we didn't hang out as much, and we just kind of separated.
Why would that be?
His behavior was different.
What do you mean?
He didn't appear to me to be the happy-go-lucky Roy that we all fell in love with. It was different. It's hard to explain.
Right there in front of you, you have State's Exhibit 287. Can you flip that over, please?
Yes, sir.
You said you were Facebook friends with him from time to time. Did there come a time when you saw a post or a message from the defendant on July the 12th, 2013 that caused you to be disturbed and caused you to ask him to take that down?
Yes, sir. I saw the post on the Facebook. To the best of my memory, he had just gone to Ball Springs, or was in the process of going to Ball Springs, and it was...
Oh, let me ask you this, Chief. That State's Exhibit 287 there, do you recognize that as being either the same or something very similar to something that you saw and asked the defendant to take down?
Yes, sir.
We offer State's Exhibit 287, Judge.
Can I ask a couple of questions?
Sure.
Good afternoon, Chief.
How are you, sir?
I'm doing all right, thanks. You said you recognized State's 287 or you didn't recognize it?
I remember, I don't remember the picture per se. Well, I can't testify that I remember the picture, but I remember something
Thank you,
along.
you've answered the question. We
Sorry.
object, Your Honor. He doesn't recognize it.
Need a plan?
Do you recognize the language that's contained in State's 287?
Yes. It's familiar from what I remember.
We offer, Judge.
Any objection?
Yes. Can I ask a couple more questions?
Sure.
Chief, you recognize it or you not recognize it?
I can't testify to the picture itself. No, sir, I cannot.
Okay. And apparently there's some language on it, is that right?
Yes, sir, there is.
I guess you didn't write the language, did you?
No, sir, I did not.
Did Mr. Oliver write the language?
I don't believe so, no.
We object, Your Honor. It's not relevant. It's not authentic.
Those objections are overruled. I'll give you running objection to State's 287, which is now made for all purposes. You may vote.
Hey, Chief, look down at the bottom of that, and let me ask you to tell the ladies and gentlemen of the jury whether it says on their cover photo. Cover
Yes,
photos.
Yes, sir.
It does?
Yes, sir, it does.
Like in Facebook parlance, his cover page?
Could be.
Okay. What's the language there? Read it, quote it for the jury.
I would never in my life be as good at anything else as I am at killing people.
And you asked him to take that down?
Yes, sir, I did.
Pass witness.
Cross-examination.
Thank you, Your Honor. And when did you see that on the Facebook page?
From the best of my memory, 2012 or 13 is the date here. I believe, if I recall correctly, either he just left our department, it was the process in Balk Springs, or just got hired on in Balk Springs.
And you don't recognize the photograph? Is that correct?
That's correct.
You remember seeing something like that on Mr. Oliver's Facebook page?
I remember the words, fairly clearly. It was something along the lines of, being put on this earth to kill people and being good at it. But I can't testify to 100% that this is it, but it's close to what it was.
You know what a repost is?
Yes, sir, I do.
What is it?
Where a friend has a picture that they like and they can tag it and it reposts on their page.
Okay, and people just pass things along. Is that right?
That's right.
Is that what this thing is?
I don't know.
Have you seen it anywhere else?
No, sir, I'm not.
There are a lot of things like that that soldiers pass along from one another. Is that right?
It could be, yes, sir.
And how long did Roy work for you?
I think he started in early 2000. The first time got deployed, he came back. I'm not sure the exact dates, but it was up until the time that he left for Balk Springs.
And he was gone, he did a couple of hitches in Iraq, is that right?
Yes, sir.
So he was gone, when he had deployed, he was gone for a period of time, is that right?
Yes, sir, he was.
And it's not unusual when someone leaves a department or leaves a city or leaves a family for a period of time, they come back and the relationships are a little bit different.
Sure.
That's correct?
That's correct.
Because they haven't been around for a while.
Yes, sir.
While Roy worked for you, did he show up and do his job?
He did.
Was he a good police officer?
I remember him more as a dispatcher than a police officer.
Was he a good dispatcher?
He was a great dispatcher.
Did he also work for you as a volunteer firefighter?
Yes, sir, he did.
Was he a good volunteer firefighter?
He was.
Did you have any disciplinary issues with him at Dalworthington Gardens?
There might have been something with the city side. There was a very short stint that he worked for Public Works as well, but I don't know the details or particulars of that.
How long ago would that have been?
A couple of years maybe before he left. I don't know, I'm sorry.
Okay. But while he worked for you, there weren't any disciplinary issues?
Not that I'm aware of, no, sir.
He was a good worker.
He was.
He liked to help people?
He did.
Is that a major part of being a volunteer firefighter or dispatcher or a police officer?
Yes, sir.
Was he motivated to do that?
He was.
Did you bring anyone here with you today?
No, sir, I did not.
You met with the representatives of the DA's office on one or more occasions regarding this matter you're testifying about here today?
Yes, sir, I have.
How did those meetings go?
First one was a little different.
In what way?
Maybe a little aggressive.
Were there some things said to you that you've never had said to you as a law enforcement officer?
Not directly to me.
In what way?
One of my coworkers was accused of not telling the truth and was told that he was going to be prosecuted and possibly put in jail.
Who was he told that by?
Mr. Snipes.
Who was your coworker?
Richard Maurer.
In your opinion, was there any reason for Mr. Snipes to have told Mr. Maurer that?
There was some confusion over how this information got to the DA's office.
And because of some confusion, Mr. Snipes felt that Mr. Maurer ought to go to jail. Is that right?
That's what I was told from Mr. Maurer.
We pass the witness.
Very good. Ms. Witness, do you finally excuse or subject to?
Finally, excuse me.
To be excused.
Okay, very good. So you're going to stand down and you're excused from any further service in this matter. Can I ask witness, please?
Call Rosie Medina, Judge.
Dina?
No, not him. Not him. Rosie Medina. Rosie.
Dina? Hi. Could you please come to the front of the court? Before you have a seat, could you raise your right hand? I swear the testimony you're about to give will be the truth. Please have a seat. You respond to questions from Mr. Snipes? That's also to Mr. Gill and Mr. Brissette. Go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Judge. Please state your full name, spell your first name, your last name for the record.
Rosalinda Medina, that's Rosalinda Medina.
Can you pull that microphone closer because of it moves? Yeah.
And do you have a brother, ma'am?
Yes,
And who is that?
Louis Medina.
And he's junior. And then is there a Louis Medina senior?
Yes,
Okay. And has your brother had some health issues, some drug issues, some epilepsy issues, things like that?
yes.
Can you tell the ladies and gentlemen of the jury about that?
He was, he's clean now. He was on heroin for 10 years, I believe.
And where do you live, ma'am?
In Pleasant Grove,
On the
Ball Springs.
March 20th, 2014, where did you live?
Ball Springs.
Who did you live with?
My father.
And would your brother also live there or come there from time to time?
Yes, sir.
Can you tell the ladies and gentlemen of the jury about that?
Well, I mean, going through his addiction, we'd see him every so often.
And I want to direct your attention to March the 20th, 2014, and I'll ask you if something very unusual happened that day. Is that a yes?
Yes.
All right. Will you tell the ladies and gentlemen of the jury about what time of the day that was?
I don't remember.
Was it during the daytime, though?
Yes, during the day.
Afternoon?
Yes.
Okay. And did your little brother have some problems, maybe an epileptic fit, something like that?
Yes.
Can you tell them about that?
I was in the room and he was having a seizure. And that's when my father banged on the wall and told me to call the ambulance for help.
Okay. Did you do that?
Yes.
All right, tell the ladies and gentlemen of the jury what happened next.
So I walked out of the room, saw him laying there, my dad on top of him trying to bring him back, and
Who is him?
my brother.
Right.
And I called the ambulance, asking for help. We had already counted 2 minutes after him having the seizure, so we were worried about him. And I was on the phone with the dispatch when I was asking for help from the ambulance.
Okay. And did eventually some police officers from Bald Springs arrive?
Yes, correct.
Okay. And the defendant in this case, Roy Oliver, would you recognize him if you saw him here in the courtroom today?
Yes.
Would you point to him, please, and identify an article of clothing he's wearing?
White shirt and blue tie.
Okay. If I'm in seat 1, Kiki's in 2, George 3, Mr. Gill 4, Mr. Brissette 5. What seat is the defendant in?
1.
Okay, I'm 1.
Oh, you're 1. Sorry. 6.
What is it?
6.
6. If the record will reflect the witnesses have correctly identified the defendant.
The record shall so.
All right, so what happened when the defendant came into your house? Was he with someone, another officer?
Yes.
All right, tell the ladies and gentlemen of the jury what happened.
Pretty much when they ran in, I was still on the phone with the emergency dispatch, and what I can remember is them manhandling my dad and my brother, and they had him pinned against the wall. My dad's telling him, he can't breathe, that's the reason why we called, he can't breathe. And then the taller officer pointed the laser gun at my dad, so I got in between. I said, hey, he needs a translator, calm down, I'm trying to calm him down. So it's all going chaotic. Then,
Let me stop you there. Did you see any reason for those officers to act like that?
No,
Was when you made that call in, were you reporting a crime or anything of that nature? You were just asking for medical assistance for your brother.
correct.
All right. Tell the ladies and gentlemen of the jury what else happened.
And then I got my dad to calm down. As they were taking my brother out, one had, I believe the taller officer had my brother's neck face down, and another officer had his
Okay,
legs.
say, which one are you talking about? You say another officer, is that the defendant?
There was 3.
There were 3, all
Yeah.
right.
So then at this point, I'm hysterical, trying to calm everybody down, and then my brother's telling me, I can't breathe. And I said, sir, he cannot breathe. And the taller one said, if he can tell you he can't breathe, there's some kind of airway going through. And then I
The
said,
taller
okay.
one is not the defendant.
No.
And then what happened after that?
And then I said, okay, so we're walking outside the door. The ambulance gets there. They pull me to the side to talk to me about my brother, information about him. And then I saw my dad fly on the side from our porch area to the mud. And I looked over, and then I screamed. I said, what's going on? Oliver said, we're just trying to calm the situation down. And then they one had one knee on my brother's back. My dad, then they finally sat him down in handcuffs. I said, Dad, they're just trying to calm you down. And then they're taking him in the cop car. So I'm questioning what's going on. I told my dad, they're trying to calm it down, just calm down. And then they're taken off after I'm giving the information to the ambulance. And I asked Oliver, why are you taking him? He said, oh, we're taking him for interfere with public duty. I said, that's not what you told me. You said you were calming it down. And I said, can I at least translate to him? He said, we have interpreters down in the station. And that was it. I had to go bail my dad out, and we left my brother in there.
Rosie, you had called the paramedics for assistance with your brother's medical assistance, is that right?
Yes.
Not because any kind of crime had been committed?
No.
Were you expecting the police to be out there?
No.
Did you see anything out there that day by either the defendant or Officer Warren or any other officer that you thought was justified as far as their behavior of your brother and your father?
No.
That's witness, Judge.
Cross-examination?
Yes, Your Honor. Ma'am, my name is Miles Brissett. I'm going to ask you a few questions. I don't think you and I have ever met before, have we?
No.
Okay. So, the district attorney's office gives us some reports and stuff like that as part of discovery. And part of it is what they call a run sheet from a dispatcher. When you called 911 that day, the dispatcher takes down and writes down what you tell them so they can update the officers in the field. Kind of like Cops the television show. You've seen that. Is that true?
Right.
Okay. So from the folks calling from your house, it would be if they said a female's calling, that'd be your voice on the phone?
Correct.
Okay. Do you remember telling the dispatchers that your brother had consumed some illegal narcotics known as alprazolam or 4 bars?
As far as... no. I mean, that he might have.
Okay. Do you know how the dispatcher then wrote in the initial responses to send vehicles to come help your brother that a phrase, he took some bars? What's bars mean to you in the street narcotics terms?
Xanax.
Okay. And Xanax is the trade name for the generic alprazolam. You know that, right?
No, I'm not real familiar with drugs myself.
Okay, sure enough. Do you know what bars does to people?
From what I saw with my brother, calm him down.
If you mix it with other substances, did your brother ever do that?
I wasn't present anytime he was doing drugs.
How would you know that he took bars then when you were telling 911 that?
When my father told me.
So is your father standing next to you then when you're on the phone with the 911?
Well, I kept running in and out of the house trying to see where the help was at. and then I would ask my father questions, and then I would run out.
And what time of day approximately was this again, if you recall?
Oh, it was daylight. I don't know exactly the time.
Do you remember telling the dispatcher that your brother was throwing up some white stuff when you...
No. Well, then my dad said it was a banana.
Do you remember telling dispatch that he wasn't breathing?
Correct.
Do you remember telling dispatch at some point that he was waking up and now breathing?
Right.
And you told the dispatch that he had a history of some seizures.
Yes.
And that's all important, so if people are going to come up to a scene, it's important for them to know what's going on for everybody's safety, correct?
Right.
Where in y'all's house was your brother when he was having this medical issue?
In the living room.
I assume y'all have some furniture in there.
Correct.
Could there, when he's having the seizure or this medical issue on the ground, could he have the possibility of bumping into stuff?
No. There was no couch in that area.
In the area he's in when the officers are there, is there an area where stuff could fall or be placed underneath it from time to time?
What was that again?
Well, here's where I'm going. At some point in time, if I understand your testimony on direct, you talk about how the officers mishandled your brother when they were taking him out of the house, correct?
Correct.
Can you tell the members of the jury what Officer Oliver handed you that your brother was reaching for underneath a piece of furniture?
I don't remember that part.
Do you recall the large kitchen knife that was laying on the floor underneath the piece of furniture that your brother was trying to reach when the officers were putting their leg on their back, as you talked about?
No, sir.
You don't remember the knife at all in the back?
No.
No, not at all. No knife at all.
No.
Do you recall looking at any statements that y'all ever made or anything like that with these police reports when you were talking to the district attorney's office about a knife or anything like that?
No, sir.
Okay. Did the paramedics or Balch Springs Fire Rescue arrive?
Yes.
And between the paramedics, did they make a decision that the safest place to treat your brother because of the confined space inside the residence was to pick him up and get him outside so they could treat him?
No, they just straight asked me questions about his health.
Sure. Do you recall the firefighters or the paramedics working on your brother inside, or did they make a decision that it was too tight of space and they needed to work outside?
I don't recall that.
Did they bring a stretcher inside your house, or do you know how your brother got outside?
No, they carried him out there.
Do you recall them carrying your brother out there at the direction of Balch Springs Fire Rescue's paramedics?
No.
Did a big fire truck come, or did one of their rescue trucks come?
No, it was an ambulance truck.
The ambulance truck. So just two firefighters?
I don't remember, honestly.
Do you remember how many people were in uniform that day at y'all's place?
3.
So, Mr. Oliver, his partner, and then one paramedic?
There were several paramedics, but I don't remember exactly.
Was there any pushing or shoving by anybody other than the officers from what you testified to?
No.
Your father or your brother weren't being combative in any way?
No.
Was your brother acting calm when he woke up?
After the inside the
Yes,
house?
ma'am.
He was scared.
All right. Had you seen your brother come out of his medically induced seizures before?
No.
So you never seen your brother have a seizure before this?
No.
Had you ever seen your brother have a reaction to any of the medicine he may have taken before?
When we got called from the hospital previously.
Is when he's on the ground, is that when the officers first saw him on the ground, or was he standing up? I missed that part of your testimony.
when, I don't know if I was facing them when that happened.
Okay.
I don't remember.
Did you stay online with the dispatchers, or did you tell them that the police had arrived and?
Yes, I was on the phone with them.
And did the officers ever tell you that they're there and that the paramedics were on the way? Do you recall that?
No, I don't recall.
So where was your brother exactly when the officers got there?
In the living room.
Was he sitting in a chair or was he on the floor?
I believe on the floor.
And was it Mr. Oliver here, or was it the other officer you called the taller officer?
The taller one.
And was the taller officer the one that was dealing mainly with your brother?
No,
Okay. Who was the first one that dealt with your brother then?
they all did.
All right, who's they all?
Oliver, the taller guy,
Anyone else?
and I believe there was another officer there.
Okay. What did that other officer look like?
I don't remember his face clearly.
Was he taller than officer, the taller officer, or shorter than Officer Oliver?
I don't remember.
Do you remember a separate ambulance other than the Bulch Springs Fire Department known as Care Flight arrived?
No,
Was your brother complying when the officers or paramedics were trying to treat him?
yes,
He wasn't flailing his arms around or anything like that as they're trying to get vital signs and stuff like that?
I wasn't paying attention to that.
If he was struggling when they're trying to get his vital signs and check on him, could you see where his hands might be a danger to the officers or the paramedics trying to treat him?
Not if he was handcuffed.
Okay, that's what I'm getting to. If they went ahead and handcuffed him, do you see where that might be? For everybody's safety, we calm them down so they don't hurt each other or hurt anybody else?
Right.
Because if I understand you, he's thrown up something like a banana after having some medicine, some Xanax. Is that correct?
Yes.
Do you know if your brother had a prescription for Xanax at the time?
I don't know.
Have you ever seen the effects of Xanax when it's mixed with illegal drugs or alcohol?
No, sir.
Ma'am, thank you so much. Pass the witness.
Very good. May this witness be finally excused?
Subject to recall.
Ma'am, you may stand down for right now, but it is possible we might be recalled as a witness, so please don't discuss your testimony with anybody. Ms. Knox?
Call Luis Medina Sr. and judge this witness will need an interpreter.
You would please go come to the front of the courtroom. And before I swear the witness in, sir, I need to swear to you. Could you please state your name and your license number for the court reporter?
Yes, my name is Josue Carmona, Josue Carmona. My license number is 1185.
Could you raise your right hand? You swear that the translation from English to Spanish and Spanish to English will be true and accurate to the best of your abilities.
I do.
Very good. Please put your hand down. Sir, if you could please turn and face me, raise your right hand. It's okay. You swear the testimony you're about to give will be the truth.
¿Juras el testimonio que está a punto de darse la verdad? Sí, I do.
Very good. Put your hand down. He's responding to questions for Mr. Knight and perhaps Mr. Bissett to your left. Go ahead, sir.
Please state your full name for the record, spell your first and last name.
Por favor, diga su nombre completo para que quede registrado en las actas y deletree su nombre y su apellido.
Mi nombre es Luis Antonio Medina.
My name is Luis Antonio Medina.
And how are you currently employed, sir?
¿Y dónde trabaja usted actualmente?
Stephanie Spike Steele. ¿Cómo se llama? Stephanie Spike Steele.
Stephanie Spike Steele.
Okay. And what do you do there?
¿Y qué es lo que hace usted ahí?
Supervisor.
I'm a supervisor.
Where do you live, sir?
¿Dónde vive usted?
4105 Woodall Drive, Hot Spring, Texas, 75180.
4105 Woodward Drive, Bot Spring, Texas 75180.
I want to direct your attention to March the 20th, 2014, if I could, please.
Quisiera hablar con usted a lo que sucedió en marzo 20 del 2014, si pudiera hacerlo.
Correcto.
Correcto.
Okay. At that time, were you living with your son, Luis Medina Jr.?
Y en ese tiempo vivía usted con su hijo Luis Medina Jr.
Sí.
Yes.
And also your daughter Rosie that just testified?
Y también con su hija Rosy, quien acaba de testificar.
Correcto.
That is correct.
On that day, was there something that happened to you and to your son and to your daughter that you thought was very unusual by way of the police from Balch Springs?
Y ese día algo sucedió que fue fuera de lo común, tanto a usted como a su hijo y a su hija, que involucró a la policía de Palm Springs.
Ella estaba llamando la ambulancia.
She was calling the ambulance.
Okay, but before that, just the question is, did something unusual happen that day?
Antes de eso, la pregunta es, ¿algo fuera de lo normal sucedió ese día?
El hijo mío padece de asma.
My son suffered of asthma.
Okay. All right, and could that be possibly epilepsy, sir?
¿Y podría también eso ser epilepsia?
Ujú. Sí, correcto.
Yes, that's correct.
And you and he had been out buying gasoline so you could cut your grass, right?
Y usted y él habían salido a comprar gasolina para que usted cortara el pasto, ¿es correcto?
No, estábamos adentro de la casa.
No, we were inside the house.
But before that, you went to buy gasoline to cut the yard.
Oh, sí.
Pero antes de eso usted fue a comprar gasolina para cortar el pasto.
Correcto.
That is correct.
Okay. When you got into the house, did something happen unusual with your son that caused your daughter to call the paramedics?
Y cuando llegaron a la casa, algo fuera de lo normal le sucedió a su hijo que hizo que su hija llamara a la ambulancia.
Sí, él se le dio convulsión.
Yes, he had a seizure.
He being your son.
Y él es su hijo.
Correcto.
That is correct.
And did your daughter, did you ask your daughter to call like an ambulance or the medics or something?
Y usted le pidió a su hija que llamara a la ambulancia o a los paramédicos.
Correcto.
That is correct.
Did the medics come, the paramedics, or did the police come?
¿Vinieron los paramédicos o vino la policía?
Primero vino la policía.
First, the police arrived.
Tell the ladies and gentlemen of the jury what happened when the police got there.
Dígale a las damas y caballeros del jurado qué fue lo que sucedió cuando la policía llegó.
Ellos llegaron y llegaron directo, no preguntaron nada.
They got there and they came in just straight. They didn't ask for anything.
Y entonces yo estaba dándole primero auxilio a mi hijo mío.
And I was providing first aid to my son.
Cuando llegaron ellos y él se acababa de despertar.
When they arrived, and he just came to.
And have you learned that one of those officers that came was the defendant, Roy Oliver?
Y usted supo que uno de los agentes de policía que llegaron fue el acusado, Roy Oliver.
Correcto.
That is correct.
And did Roy Oliver do anything to your son that you didn't think was the right thing for him to do?
Y Roy Oliver le hizo algo a su hijo que usted pensó que no era lo correcto que él hiciera.
Cuando ellos llegaron directo con yo, en lo que él despertó, a mí me aventaron para un lado.
When they arrived, they went just straight to us. When he came to, they came straight and they just pushed me to the side.
Did there come a time that the defendant, Roy Oliver, held your son's head to the ground, sir?
Y llegó un momento en que el acusado Roy Oliver le puso la cabeza de su hijo en el suelo.
ellos, los dos, entre los dos ellos, lo agarraron.
Between both of them, grabbed him.
Did they push his head to the ground, sir?
Y ellos le empujaron la cabeza al suelo.
Correcto.
That is correct.
Tell the ladies and gentlemen of the jury about that.
Dígale a las damas y caballeros del jurado en cuanto a eso.
Es que cuando el hijo mío despertó, llegaron ellos,
When my son came to, they arrived.
entonces me pucharon a mí y los dos ellos se abalanzaron contra él.
They pushed me and they both lunged against him.
Y luego le pusieron el brazo en el pescuezo contra la pared.
And then they put their arm on his neck against the wall.
Are you able to identify the defendant, Roy Oliver, if you see him here in the courtroom today?
Si usted viese al acusado Roy Oliver en la sala de ese tribunal hoy, ¿lo podría usted identificar?
Sí.
Yes.
Okay, if you could point to him, please, and identify an article of clothing he's wearing.
¿Puede por favor señalarlo e identificar qué ropa lleva puesta?
Lleva un saco, corbata azul, camisa blanca.
He has a jacket, blue tie, and a white shirt.
Is he bald-headed, sir?
¿Y el espelón?
Sí.
Yes.
The record could reflect the witnesses correctly identified as the defendant, Judge.
Record shows so.
All right. So, tell the ladies and gentlemen of the jury what the defendant did to your son and to you after they got out to your place.
Por favor, dígale a las damas y caballeros del jurado qué fue lo que el acusado le hizo a su hijo y le hizo a usted después de que ellos llegaron a su casa.
Después que ellos llegaron a la casa, nosotros sacaron al hijo mío ya esposado. El más grandote le metió la mano por atrás, ya esposado, y la otra mano en el pescuezo.
Once they arrived to my place, they got my son out of the house. The tall one, he put his arm across my son's arms on his back and the other one on his neck.
Who's the other one?
¿Quién es el otro?
Yo no me acuerdo del otro, pero era el compañero de él.
I do not recall the other one, but that was his companion.
Did anybody ever point a taser at you?
Alguien de ellos lo apuntó con una pistola eléctrica.
Correcto.
That is correct.
Who did that?
¿Quién hizo eso?
El otro compañero de él.
His partner.
What happened after that, sir?
¿Y qué sucedió después de eso, señor?
Después lo que sucedió fue que yo iba caminando porque en eso llegó la ambulancia.
What happened is that I started walking because at that moment the ambulance arrived.
Entonces la hija mía se fue a platicar con lo de la ambulancia
So my daughter went and talked to the ambulance people,
y cuando sentí yo fue que me tiraron al suelo.
and all of a sudden I felt that I was pushed down to the ground.
Who did that to you?
¿Quién le hizo eso a usted?
Oliver.
Oliver did.
Did you see any reason for him to have to do that?
¿Y usted vio alguna razón para que él hiciera eso?
Ninguna razón.
None whatsoever.
Were you just looking for medical assistance for your son that day, sir?
¿Y ese día usted estaba pidiendo nada más asistencia médica para su hijo?
Correcto.
That is correct.
Anybody out of your place commit any kind of crimes or anything where you need the police to come out there and shove y'all around?
¿Y alguien en su casa estaba cometiendo algún delito en que usted necesitaba que la policía viniera y los empujara a todos?
No.
No.
That's what it's done.
Sir, good afternoon.
Buenas tardes, señor.
Buenas tardes.
Good afternoon.
The area that your son was in at the time that the officers got there, was there a bed in that area?
En el área en que estaba su hijo en ese momento, cuando los policías llegaron, ¿era un área donde había una cama?
Correcto.
That is correct.
Do you know how a large knife was found under that bed, how it got there?
¿Y sabe usted cómo es que un cuchillo largo fue encontrado debajo de la cama? ¿Cómo es que llegó ahí?
No sé.
I don't know.
Do you recall when your son was on the ground that he was within arm's reach of the knife under the bed?
Y recuerde usted que cuando su hijo estaba en el suelo, él estaba muy cerca a donde podía agarrar el cuchillo.
No, estaba lejos.
No, he was far out.
So at no time was he ever attempting to crawl toward the area where the officers looked and found a knife?
Entonces en ningún momento trató él de gatear hacia el área donde los oficiales buscaron y encontraron el cuchillo.
No, porque no le dieron chance.
No, because they didn't give him a chance.
Do you recall that you were yelling at your son when the officers came to the door, yelling at your son to tell him to calm down so the authorities could treat him?
¿Recuerda usted que cuando los policías llegaron a su puerta, usted le estaba gritando a su hijo que se calmara para que la policía le pudiera dar tratamiento?
Yo le estaba diciendo eso porque realmente ellos le tenían, lo estaban marcando.
I was telling him that because actually they were choking him.
So the officers were choking him prior to the officers even coming inside the residence?
Entonces los agentes policiales lo estaban ahogando antes de que entraran adentro de la casa.
No, cuando estaban adentro.
No, when they were inside.
Cuando lo sacaron con la mano así.
And when they took him out with the arm around here.
Around where, sir?
¿Dónde tenía?
Did he struggle with his arms toward the officers or you as they're trying to assess him on the ground?
Y él luchó, batalló con los agentes de la policía cuando estaban tratando de evaluarlo en el suelo.
No.
No.
So are you telling this jury that he never fought with the officers or you that night?
Entonces está usted diciéndole a este jurado que él nunca peleó con los policías o con usted esa noche.
No.
No.
No, you're not telling them that, or no, he didn't swing his arms at all?
No, usted no le está diciendo eso a ellos, o no, él no aventó ningún golpe.
No le dieron chance.
He was not given the opportunity.
So if anybody said he was swinging his arms or being combative, that wouldn't be true?
Entonces, si alguien dice que él estaba aventando manotazos o estaba siendo combativo, ¿eso no es verdad?
No.
No.
Had your son been drinking at all that afternoon?
¿Y esa tarde su hijo había estado tomando algo?
No.
No.
Had you been at work that day?
¿Y ese día había usted estado en el trabajo?
No, estaba con él.
No, I was with him.
That was a Thursday, if I recall correctly. Is that your recollection, sir?
Si recuerdo correctamente, ese fue un jueves. ¿Eso es lo que usted recuerda?
Correcto.
That is correct.
Had you been with him in his presence or company all day?
¿Y había estado usted con él en su presencia, en su compañía, todo el día?
No todo el día.
No all day.
Prior to your daughter calling 911, how long had you been with him?
Antes de que su hija llamara al 911, ¿por cuánto tiempo había estado usted con él?
Teníamos como una hora andar.
We had been for about an hour.
Is it during this hour that he took the 4 bars, the pills?
Y fue durante esa hora que él se tomó 4 barras, las píldoras.
No.
No.
Do you know what 4-bar pills are when he was taking them?
¿Y sabe usted qué es lo que son las píldoras de 4 barras?
No, porque nunca he usado droga.
No, because I had never used drugs.
Please let him know, I'm not asking if he used them. I'm asking if you ever saw his son use them, because somebody tells 911 that he's consumed them.
No estoy preguntando si usted las ha usado, estoy preguntando si sus hijos las ha usado porque alguien llamó al 911 indicando que podía haberlas consumido.
Lo que yo sé que le dije yo a la hija mía que llamara a la ambulancia.
What I know is that I asked my daughter to call the ambulance.
Would your daughter have been in a position in the house to make her own observations or see what was going on and relay that to 911 herself?
Y su hija estuvo en la casa en cierta posición de que ella podía observar qué es lo que estaba sucediendo y decirle al 911 qué es lo que estaba sucediendo.
No, porque él andaba conmigo en ese instante.
No, because he was with me at that moment.
So how did your daughter get the information to call 911? The information that she told 911?
Entonces, ¿cómo es que su hija obtuvo la información que ella le dio al 911?
Eso sí yo no sé.
I don't know that.
Did your son know that he had a medical condition that Mr. Snipes asked about known as epilepsy?
Y su hijo sabe que él tenía un problema médico que el señor Snipes le mencionó a usted que es epilepsia.
Sí, él sabe porque fue con un médico.
Yes, he knows because he went to see a doctor.
To your knowledge, did the doctor tell him that taking illegal drugs can enhance the effects of the epilepsy?
A su edad, saber y entender, ¿sabe usted si el doctor le dijo a su hijo que el tomar drogas ilegales puede hacer que el efecto de la medicina de la epilepsia sea mayor?
Eso sí yo no tengo idea.
I had no idea.
Did your son know that the effects of the epilepsy mixed with illegal drugs could be a side effect of being combative when they wake up?
Y su hijo sabe que un efecto secundario de mezclar la medicina de la epilepsia con drogas ilegales es el ser agresivo una vez que despierte.
Él no estaba agresivo ese día.
He was not combative that day.
Had your son already thrown up prior to the officers getting there, or did he throw up after the officers got there?
¿Su hijo vomitó antes de que los policías llegaran ahí o después de que los policías llegaron?
No me fijé.
I didn't see that.
So if someone told 911 that he was throwing up a white substance, do you know who might have told 911 that?
Si alguien le dijo al 911 que él estaba vomitando una sustancia blanca, ¿sabe usted quién podría haberles dicho eso?
Me imagino yo que fue la hija mía porque ella es la que estaba llamando a la ambulancia.
I imagine that it was my daughter because she was the one calling for the ambulance.
And your daughter wasn't around him though at the time, correct?
Y su hija no estaba ahí en ese momento.
No, ella estaba en su cuarto.
Oh, well, she was in her room.
And I apologize, I haven't had the pleasure of being at your residence. Is her room, can she see where your son was when he was going through this medical event?
Y discúlpeme, no he tenido el placer de estar en su residencia, pero su hija desde su cuarto podía ver dónde estaba su hijo cuando esto estaba sucediendo.
No.
No.
Was there anybody else at your residence that night besides family members, besides your daughter, your son, and you at the time of this happening?
Y esa noche había algún otro miembro de la familia en su casa, aparte de su hija, su hijo y usted cuando eso estaba sucediendo.
No estábamos los tres.
No, just the three of us.
At some point, you came to the Balch Springs Police Department and made a complaint, is that correct?
En cierto momento usted vino al departamento de policía de Balch Springs y usted puso una denuncia, ¿es correcto?
Correcto.
That is correct.
Did you type out a statement before you got there?
Y usted preparó una declaración por escrito antes de ir ahí.
Correcto.
That is correct.
Who typed it out for you?
¿Quién la escribió por usted?
Una notaria.
Notary.
And did the notary translate from Spanish to English like this gentleman is today?
Y la notaria lo tradujo del español al inglés, así como este caballero lo está haciendo hoy.
Correcto.
That is correct.
Do you recall that officials from Balch Springs Police Department made numerous attempts over a month period to make contact with you?
Y recuerda usted que los oficiales del Departamento de Policía de Balch Springs trataron numerosamente de ponerse en contacto con usted?
Nomás una vez.
Just once.
They only attempted to make contact with you or talk to you one time?
Ellos solamente intentaron a ponerse en contacto con usted o hablar con usted solamente una vez?
Una vez y fue cuando le dije yo que hablaran con el abogado.
Once, and it was then when I told him to talk to the attorney.
Whose attorney?
¿Qué abogado?
Al Rodríguez Reyes.
Al Rodríguez Reyes, something like that.
Would that be a civil attorney that the family had retained?
¿Y ese era un abogado de lo civil que había sido contratado por la familia?
Yo lo contraté.
I retained him.
Did you give to your civil attorney the letters that Lieutenant Merritt, in charge of internal affairs, mailed to him on numerous occasions trying to get more information about this incident?
Y le dio usted a su abogado las cartas que el teniente Merrick, quien está encargado de asuntos internos, le mandó a usted?
Yo no recibí ninguna carta.
I didn't receive any letters.
And do you still live at the same address today as you did back in 2014?
¿Y usted todavía vive en la misma dirección hoy que en la que vivía en el 2014? That is correct.
Has your son been able to shake his habit and get healthy today?
¿Y su hijo ha podido superar sus hábitos de uso y ya está saludable ahora?
Correcto.
That is correct.
Very good. Is he living with you at home still today, sir?
Muy bien. ¿Y él todavía vive en casa con usted, señor?
No.
No.
Where is he living today, sir?
¿Dónde está él viviendo actualmente?
Él vive con su señora.
He lives with his lady.
Really don't know how to answer that question. Especially at 5:10 in the afternoon. Pass the witness, Your Honor.
May this witness be finally excused?
Yes, sir. Subject to recall, Judge.
Sir, you may stand down. Please don't discuss your testimony with anybody else.
Que por favor no discuta su testimonio con nadie.
Thank you very much. Mr. Science?
Judge, can we approach briefly?
Sure. So, Mr. Deere, this would be a good time for dinner break, so if you would please go to the sheriff for any further instructions. Please don't do any research, don't deliberate. Wait further instructions, post the use of this.
All rise.
Mr. Snipes. So, court still in session. If you could please be seated. We have a matter to take up outside the presence of the jury and on the record. Mr. Snipes, please call your witness.
Dr. Tim Branaman.
Doctor, if you would please raise your right hand. You swear the testimony that you're about to give will be the truth. Please have a seat and respond to questions from Mr. Snipes and perhaps also Mr. Brissett or Mr. Gill. Mr. Snipes, we're here in motion 702 here, so whenever you are ready to proceed, you go as quickly as possible.
I'm going to do that, Judge. Please state your full name for the record, spell your first name, spell your last name.
Timothy Fay Branaman, B-R-A-N-A-M-A-N.
And what do you do for a living, sir?
I am a psychologist in forensic practice.
And where's that?
Forensic practice is the application of psychology to principles of the law, questions of the law.
expedite this in front of the judge, do you from time to time conduct psychological evaluations to evaluate potential police officer, police department applicants?
I do.
And do you also testify in court as an expert?
I do.
And more often than not, that's for the defense. Is that right, sir?
More often than not, what?
That's for the defense, correct?
More often than not, yes.
Okay. And did I ask you to take a look at the psychological assessment of Roy Oliver that was conducted by Dr. Philip Ruse in 2011?
Yes, you did.
Okay. And what is the standard process for pre-employment evaluation of police officer candidates, sir?
Essentially, the individual comes in, they are interviewed, they complete psychological tests, oftentimes questionnaires, sentence completion forms. Generally, the interview follows the completion of the tests and review of the test by the evaluator.
What did you review from Dr. Ruse's evaluation?
There was the materials that he had used during the evaluation. There was a test report called the PEP-Q, which is Psych Evaluation Personality Questionnaire, and specific to this type of evaluation, that is pre-employment evaluation in protective services. There was also a report that was submitted by Dr. Ruse to the police department. There was a sentence completion form that was completed, as well as a history form that was a paper and pencil questionnaire that Mr. Oliver completed.
Okay, so PEP-Q is an acronym, P-E-P-Q, correct?
That's correct.
Anything stand out from you from your review of those documents?
I'm sorry, my hearing is...
Your hearing's bad, okay. Did anything stand out to you from your review of those documents?
Yes, they did. A number of things stood out.
All right, will you tell the judge about that?
The first thing that stood out was that the conclusion, it was not evident that Mr. Oliver was ever directly interviewed. He may or may not have been, but I could not tell that from the report. Generally, the reports that are written state what the candidate is, what position they're seeking, what department they're doing that with. The history of the candidate, which would be a general psychosocial history, test results, and then a recommendation. It was not evident that Mr. Oliver had ever been interviewed, although I can't say that with certainty. The reason that it's not evident is that the report that was prepared was essentially cut and paste from a computerized generated report from the PEP-Q. There was a little adaptation to that. I believe that there was a sentence included that reflected another test, an intellectual screening assessment that was incorporated into that. That would be the first thing that stood out.
Let me interrupt you, Doctor. Did the report that you reviewed, did it show the presence of significant psychological adjustment problems indicated by Mr. Oliver's responses?
Yes, it did.
Tell the judge about that.
What was remarkable about this was, to begin with, that the psychologist that did this evaluation cut and pasted this because there were significant conclusions drawn in that computer-generated report that would have led to a more thorough examination and perhaps additional testing by the evaluator. There were very serious questions raised by that report. Probably the most prominent one had to do with threat immunity and risk-taking, particularly threat immunity, as well as confidence could be a strength in this particular type of evaluation. On the other hand, sometimes our strengths and our weaknesses go hand in hand. Overconfidence in conjunction with threat immunity and perhaps thrill-seeking, at least at the very high end of the average range, can be problematic. Intellectual efficiency and very much concreteness as well as perfectionism stood out, suggesting that the individual might well rely more on their opinion and their own judgment in a very concrete manner without having the flexibility to consider the impact of what their actions might be.
Let me, Doctor, do you know what a protective services report is?
I'm sorry?
Do you know what a protective services report is?
I do, yes.
Did you review one of those pertaining to the defendant, Roy Oliver?
I did.
Did that report raise any concerns for you?
Yes.
What?
What I just described, essentially, because that report was the essence of what was put in the report by Dr. Roos.
Did you see any quotes from the report pertaining to emotional adjustment?
Yes, I did. I'd have to reference those, but yes, I did.
Do you have your report there with you?
I believe I do, yes.
Specifically going to emotional adjustment. And more specifically, comments from Mr. Oliver about his self-assurance.
Yes.
Can you tell the judge about that?
Mr. Oliver's self-assurance is very high, which again I would reference as if it was at the high edge of the normal range can be a strength, but as with many factors that are part of common human behavior, too much of a good thing can be a problem in some situations. And self-assurance, self-confidence was well beyond normal.
Doctor, do you remember Mr. Oliver's self-assurance being such that it might lead him to feel so confident that he may not anticipate negative consequences of his actions?
Correct. That was
elaborate on that to the judge.
Well, that had to do with rigidity of thinking and inability to be flexible in thinking, as well as that high level of self-confidence and relying on one's own judgment without stepping back, at least briefly, quickly, and that's part of intellectual efficiency, is being able to do that. And that particular test reflected that Mr. Oliver's intellectual efficiency was at the very low end of was below average. And that in conjunction with other features that I described were significant potential problems.
Did he describe himself as uninhibited and immune to threat?
As what?
Did he describe himself as uninhibited and immune to threat?
Yes, he did.
Okay. What's your concern with that, if any?
Risk-taking.
What do you mean by that?
Well, not being aware of what the consequences of a particular action might be, acting without sufficient forethought.
You know that Dr. Roos recommended him for employment at Bald Springs Police Department, correct?
Yes, he did.
Would you have?
No. Based on that report by itself, no, I would not have.
That's what, Judge.
Mr. Gill or Mr. Brissett?
Mr. Gill, Your Honor.
Very good. Whenever you're ready, Mr. Gill.
Doctor, did you say that you had prepared a report?
That I read the report? Yes.
That you prepared a report?
Or did I prepare a report? No, I did not.
What did you review?
I reviewed the report of Dr. Roos, and I reviewed what I testified to earlier.
May I see what you reviewed?
Sure. This was the psychological evaluation of Dr. Roos. I believe there's a couple of this is part of that. And I believe that perhaps in here is also, which is essentially almost identical, is the Protective Services report, as well as I have the psychological social survey that I reviewed and the brief history form that I reviewed.
These are psychological social survey.
Yes.
Go like this.
Yes. Okay, be sure I don't have something. Yes.
So 9 goes after 8.
There is the sentence completion test that was completed. And these were actual test forms.
And where did you get all these documents?
From the district attorney's office,
Specifically who?
Mr. Snipes.
And when did he provide them to you?
It was in the fall, I believe. I can't remember specifically which month. It was, I believe, September, October. I can't remember correctly.
How much time did you spend reviewing those documents?
Several hours.
Did you interview anybody?
I'm sorry?
Did you interview anyone?
No.
Did you interview Mr. Oliver?
No.
Did you interview Dr. Roos?
No.
Did you telephone anyone?
Did I telephone anyone?
Yes.
No.
You didn't telephone Mr. Oliver?
No.
Didn't telephone Dr. Roos?
No.
How many times did you talk to Mr. Snipes about this?
I only met with him once. Originally contacted me and asked if I would be available to make the review, and then met with him once
And when was that meeting?
in September, October.
Did he ask you to prepare a report?
No.
Did he tell you to not prepare a report?
I'm sorry?
Did he tell you to not prepare a report?
I'm still having some problems with that last part of your sentence.
Did he tell you to not prepare?
No, he did not tell me not to not prepare a report.
Did you review any collateral documents or publications in preparation for this testimony today?
Only to refresh my recollections with the PEPQ.
Do you work for particular police departments?
There's suburban, urban departments. I generally do appeals panel work when individuals are appealing their initial psychological evaluation. So yes, Dallas and surrounding departments.
And that's appeals panel work?
Generally, yes, as far as local departments are concerned.
Which departments?
Mesquite, Dallas, Plano, Fort Worth. Those are the ones that are coming to mind right offhand.
Do you do any original evaluations?
I do fitness for duty evaluations. I don't generally do L3 pre-employment evaluations for the local departments because those are generally handled on contract.
And how much are you being paid for your testimony here today?
Well, I'm not getting paid for my testimony. I get office. My standard fee for time out of office is $2,000 a day or $250 an hour.
Did you ever have occasion to communicate with Mr. Snipes by email?
There was probably an email exchange with regard to scheduling. That's about the extent of it, as I recall.
Did you communicate with anyone else with his office by email?
Certainly with regard to coming in and either email, but yes, as far as scheduling is concerned.
I noticed you have his cell phone number there. Did you exchange text messages with him?
Did I exchange what?
Text messages.
As far as when I was going to be needed, there was text messages exchanged.
So they told you when you were needed via text message and by email?
It would be those two, yes.
When did you last receive any specialized training in this area?
To receive what?
When did you last receive any specialized training in this area?
Fall of 2017.
Where was that?
Texas Psychological Association convention in maybe Austin. I don't recall. Maybe it could have been Houston that time.
When was your Vita prepared that we have a copy of here today?
When was what?
Your Vita prepared.
Well, I update it periodically. It was this year. It was updated. And it could be January. It could have been July. There wasn't any substantive change in it, however.
Okay, so that the specialized training that you received last year wouldn't have been something you'd want to put on your Vita?
No, I would not put it on my Vita. I do so much specialized training that generally I don't put those in my Vita.
Nothing further.
Nothing else, Judge.
Very good. Court will accept his testimony, subject to any objections. Mr. Gill, go ahead.
Well, Judge, I really don't know what he's here to testify about, except that he looked at a report and picked some things out of it that he has some comment about. I didn't hear any scientific methodology. I didn't hear any reliance on any particular treatise or professional publication. I didn't hear any professional method. I didn't hear anything except he picked a few things out and had comments about it. There's no way to gauge his testimony, and there's nothing to show that he has fitted it to any type of professional discipline.
Any reply, Mr. Snyder?
Judge, I asked him to review Dr. Roos's report to render an opinion to this jury as to whether or not the defendant should have been hired by Bald Springs, and his answer to me was unequivocally no. That's going to be the response to the jury as well. I think they should know that.
Objection to overrule. I'll give you running objection to his testimony based on the grounds that you state. And the court will see this testimony. Let's go off the record for a brief recess. Let me see what the judge will do. I'll give you all time to.
You can sit down, Doctor. Just remain in the courtroom. Remain in the courtroom.
The judge are all
Judge.